I'm delighted to welcome you on this very rainy night to what is inexplicably Sam Harris's very first lecture in New York City, which of course is where we think he belongs. I don't think that Sam Harris needs any introduction to most of this audience. He's the author of The End of Faith, Religion, Terror, and the Future of Reason, a surprise bestseller, and his first book, by the way, that outspokenly challenges one of the most unchallengeable pieties of American culture, that religion is such a great force for good that it should be immune from the rational criticism that we apply to other major social institutions. Before I turn the podium over to Sam, I want to tell you that our question and answer period after his talk is going to be conducted with written questions. There are little white cards in the containers in front of your seats, and if you'll be thinking about it and writing down your questions during his lecture, volunteers will collect them and I'll read them out so we can all hear them and there won't be much of a delay. I will be reading as many questions as possible. After this period, Sam will be signing the books which are on sale in his paperback edition at the table over here to the right. In closing, I have one final thing to say to this audience. As you know, the weather outside is quite unpleasant. So if a bolt of lightning strikes this building or hits you on your way out, I suggest that you follow the advice of the one and only Pat Robertson and call on Charles Darwin for help. And now, without any further ado, Sam Harris.
Well, thank you, Susan, and thank you all for coming on this rainy night. I also want to thank the Center for Inquiry and the Society for Ethical Culture. This really seems like the perfect merging of two organizations to bring us this talk. I'm going to talk to you tonight about belief, specifically the problem of religious belief. Our world has been balkanized into separate moral communities. We have Christians against Muslims, against Jews. The majority of people on this planet at the moment organize their lives around a founding proposition that God wrote one of their books. We have many of these books on hand. They make genuinely incompatible claims about the nature of this universe, about the disposition of certain real estate in the Middle East. We have the marriage of quite literally first century or earlier beliefs, literally Iron Age philosophy, with 21st century destructive technology. This on its face should seem untenable to us. So now I'm going to say some very unpleasant things about religious belief over the next hour. And I just want to warn you up front that I know I'm going to offend some people in this room. Let me assure you that's not the point. I'm not being deliberately provocative. I am simply worried. So I'm going to worry out loud for the next hour or so. I'm mindful of the fact that 90% of our neighbors, 90% of Americans, believe in a personal God. 40% of scientists believe in a personal God, literally a God who can hear our prayers. So I'm guaranteed to offend someone here. I know this is as secular an audience as I'm going to find, but I just want to say up front that I'm needless to say, I'll take your questions, as Susan said. Well, what is a belief? Let's get into this for a minute. Beliefs are clearly representations of the world, but they are more than that. They are the representations of the world that we think actually represent the world. This is the distinction between a belief and a hope, say. When you hope that something is true, you are representing the world. You are representing a possible state of the world. When you believe that something is true, you are actually making your best effort to map reality with your thoughts. And this is why beliefs pull the reins of our emotions and our behavior so closely. This is why belief is really part of the higher cognitive machinery we have to generate expectations about the world, expectations about how our behavior is going to change our moment-to-moment experience. If this sounds abstract to you, just imagine the change that would occur in you if the fire marshal came in at this moment and said this building is about to collapse. I mean, these are mere words. This is a mere sentence. And yet, should you give it credence, should you believe it to be true, it would completely transform your physiology, your neurology, your behavior rather quickly. And so too with any other proposition that has significant representational content. Believing a proposition to be true is what opens us to the representational content of any what otherwise would be a string of words. So, what do our neighbors believe? Well, 22% of Americans claim to be certain, literally certain, that Jesus is going to come down out of the clouds sometime in the next 50 years. Another 22% think he probably will sometime in the next 50 years. That's 44% of the electorate. Now, of course, this belief does not exist in isolation. It's not an accident that 44% of Americans also believe that the creator of the universe literally promised the land of Israel to the Jews. This is in his capacity as an omniscient real estate broker. And these beliefs are knit together with a myriad of other beliefs, infatuations with the end of history, with apocalyptic prophecy. And these beliefs have geopolitical consequences. This is not just what people believe on Sundays. It's actually not an exaggeration to say that something like half of us, something like 44% of the American population, if they turned on their television sets and saw that a mushroom cloud had replaced New York City, they would see a silver lining in this cloud, because it would be a portent to them. It would presage that the best thing that is ever going to happen is about to happen, the return of Christ. Or take another belief, that we've all been pummeled with this debate about intelligent design, the idea that the machinery of the living cell is so complicated that it could not possibly have been generated through naturalistic processes. This should be genuinely troubling to us. This really is eroding the prestige of science in our culture. It is, your children could well be taught this pseudoscience in school, in biology class, one of these days. But it's also important to recognize that it's a bit of a red herring, because 44%, actually in the last Gallup poll it was up to 53%, something like half of us are creationists. Intelligent design is not what they're fancying. They believe that we were created from mud with divine breath sometime in the last 6,000 years. You know, Adam and Eve standing in a garden with a talking snake and a hankering for apples. But this is literally the vision of the creation of our species. Or take another belief that really this should just be a curiosity to us until you see its consequences in the world. That the Catholic idea that condom use is somehow immoral. And this is a genuinely ludicrous idea. I can assure you that the powers of the human brain are insufficient to provide a good argument for this. But map this onto sub-Saharan Africa, where literally millions, something like 3.5, 4 million people, die each year from the spread of AIDS. And what you have there are Catholic ministers literally preaching the sinfulness of condom use in villages where the only information about condom use is the representation of the ministry. I mean, it seems to me that the time for respecting beliefs of this sort is long past. This is genocidal stupidity. It is criminal negligence of a sort that we would not tolerate in any other institution. Yet the Vatican cannot be criticized to the degree that it should, because it's the Vatican, and there is a overarching taboo around criticizing religious faith. We've all assimilated this idea that we should respect other people. We've all assimilated this idea that we should respect other people's religious beliefs. Your neighbor has the right to believe whatever he wants to about God and the moral structure to this universe. He has the right to believe whatever he wants to about what happens after death, and you should respect these beliefs merely because he believes them. Where else in our discourse do we play by these rules? When was the last time anyone in this room was admonished to respect another person's beliefs about history or geography or engineering or medicine? We do not respect people's beliefs. We evaluate their reasons. If my reasons are good enough, you will helplessly believe what I believe. That is what it is to be a rational human being. Reasons are contagious. If I came on this stage and said that the Holocaust never happened, you would be under no burden whatsoever to respect my beliefs. And we don't respect the beliefs of people who think Elvis is still alive, I mean, the people who make all those crazy pilgrimages to Graceland. These people do not get invited to sit on our boards of directors. They don't become presidents of universities. I mean, that is all well and good, except when you change the subject to God, and then all bets are off. Then the sky's the limit. You can be certain with zero evidence and respected for it. It is taboo to push the conversation into criticism of your beliefs. So what I'm advocating, really, and what I advocate in my book, is a kind of conversational intolerance. We don't need new laws. We don't have laws against Holocaust deniers. You know, all we need is a standard of intellectual honesty where people who pretend to be certain about things they're clearly not certain about receive some conversational pressure. I mean, this would all be accomplished if we treated everyone who spoke about God on the floor of the Senate as though they had just spoke about Poseidon. I mean, just imagine, you know, we have all these hurricanes in the Gulf, and some senator gets it into his head that we should really be praying to Poseidon. I mean, this, after all, is his jurisdiction. The ocean is reclaiming our cities. Clearly, that would be the end of that person's political career. And yet it's not like someone discovered in the 3rd century that the biblical God exists, but Poseidon doesn't. I mean, these claims have exactly the same status. So there is a conflict between religion and science. Many of us, many scientists, have papered over this conflict. And no less a body than the National Academy of Sciences, really our most elite scientists, has announced that there is no conflict, that religion and science ask different questions and represent different ways of knowing. Well, religion and science don't ask different questions, and they don't represent different ways of knowing. Every religion is making claims about the way the world is. If Jesus does come down out of the clouds like a superhero, Christianity will stand revealed as a science. That will be the science of Christianity. Every Christian will be able to say, "Told you so." I mean, here he is, look at his magic powers. And a sufficient display of magic powers, it would just take a few minutes, would convince any scientist of the claims of Christianity. I mean, take this idea that religion and science are mutually compatible and ask different questions, and broadcast it onto the current debate about stem cell research. I mean, from a biological point of view, stem cell research is one of the most promising areas of research in biology to generate medical therapies for scores of conditions. There are literally tens of millions of people in our own country suffering from diabetes, from spinal cord injury, Parkinson's, full body burns. And stem cell research is while who knows when and how it